Hi, everyone. I am very, very pleased to have Max Starkman. My name is Aaron Schwartz. I'm one of the co-founders of Orita. We do AI customer segmentation for a bunch of Klaviyo brands and direct mail. We partner with Postpilot, yada, yada, yada. This is not about Orita. This is about Max, founder of DTConnect, Beanstalk.
Maybe a little bit on Rita as well.
No,
I'm going to make sure to be in charge of
all
that.
right,
Yeah.
all right. I'm trying to get out of it. But anyway, Max, your background's awesome. I'm not going to try to. I'll do it injustice if I do the intro. So if you don't mind, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for having me on. Like I said before, it feels overdue. I'm super excited to hang out though. Really quick, weirdly like born and raised into the Shopify ecosystem, if that makes any sense. Dad started one of the first Shopify Plus agencies, one of the few solo standing ones in Toronto. To cut ahead a little bit, spent a good amount of time trying to run as far away from it as possible. Being able to kind of follow into those shoes and yeah, also just be in the same industry as your parents isn't always the coolest thing or sexiest thing growing up. But a few years ago, kind of the world came full circle and two of my good friends were starting a brand holding company called Agora Brands that we did for the better half of the past 7 years. Then through that motion, when realized that there was this huge network of brands, started Commerce Summit, which is now Beanstalk. And I know Ben's been on the show before, so he's probably covered some good bases there. And then honestly, there was a full story moment when we noticed that there was this huge opportunity to start connecting founders and builders on the solution side of things within this commerce space that we all know and love, and with the brand executives that we've been spending so much time with, and I just like naturally gravitate towards. So yeah, we've been building kind of those three companies over the past little bit, now full-fledged on the DT Connect side and on Beanstalk.
I love it. So understated that there's like so much in there. I actually wanted to very quickly, because you kind of ran through it, but Stream Commerce, right, is the name of the agency. Can you give like 30
Yes.
seconds for folks, like why they should know about Stream? Because obviously a lot of brands are listening to this, a lot of tech partners who might be interested in a great agency.
100%. Wow. I have not had gotten the opportunity to plug Stream in a while, but the best out there. I would just say like OGs of the commerce space know what they're doing across all fronts. Basically like not an agency, but a partner on everything digital commerce. So full Shopify rebuilds, management, paid ads across the board. And I think just with that breadth of experience that they have in the team they've built out, truly the team that knows the nuts and bolts of things. Didn't pick up when they saw the gold rush coming in over the past few years. Been there since the beginning. So yeah,
Cool.
can't speak more highly.
All right. We don't need to talk about Stream Commerce ever again. They're one with what a nice
I
group of
think that was
people.
the one done rule we had.
That's it. Now we get to cut off the whole podcast. So that's it.
Yeah.
All right. So I actually want to go back because you said you were trying to run away from commerce. And I find this very interesting. Obviously, you found your way back. What was your journey, and what is it that actually got you to come back into this space? Was it the people side? Was it you just knew it well? Yeah. Curious for you to go a little deeper on that.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I find it to be kind of crazy because on one hand, to me, commerce growing up was uh, product placement in Sephora at the big mall in Toronto, the shopping channel, which is where my dad was prior, a little bit of e-com at the beginning,
I thought I
and then like the
froze.
stuff day to day. Oh,
I thought I lost you, but you're still there. Keep going. It was a product placement of the mall in Toronto. Keep going, please.
yeah. I think I just got a feel for what it was, and it was heavy retail focused. I don't think I ever had a true appreciation for what the technology side of things could be. So not turned away from it or turned off, but kind of had to find my path back to it, which was because like I kind of just had this very deep appreciation that I would not be smart enough or talented enough to be a brand builder myself. And I think yet still I have found ways to be in and amongst the ecosystem because I admire those builders and founders so much. Watches, space, apparel across the board. So, and we do need to talk about that at some point. But like I could be really, really transparent, ran away from it because of the agency side. And then it was an internship at Deloitte Digital in Tel Aviv, where I had no idea what I was getting into, but it was a partner there that started to show me like the larger scale digital commerce transformations. And like one of those bizarre full circle weird moments where you're like, wait, I actually think this stuff is pretty fascinating. So then spent a good chunk of the past years and where I'm at now, in and
Uh,
around the space.
as a quick aside, I almost in 2010 joined Deloitte in Tel Aviv. There was like
No way.
a
Wait, we
very
never spoken about that. That's crazy.
yeah, very high chance. My mentor had started splitting his time between Miami and Tel Aviv, and it's a long discussion that we should chat about it separately. But that was
Okay.
a likelihood before I started my brand, which kind of like brought me to here, which is kind of funny. All right, so you'd seen the agency side, you saw the Deloitte digital side. Tell us about Agora Brands. Like, what was the conceit? What was your role? Because like, what a cool company, and obviously, like, you're still working with a lot of the folks who are involved in Agora, so obviously a good
Yeah.
experience. But yeah, what was the idea behind Agora, and what was your role there?
Yeah, I think the summary kind of cliff notes of it all from the beginning was at the time we saw these Amazon aggregators popping up and providing like incredible liquidity opportunities to Amazon brand founders. I think for us, it was like never a financial engineering game. It was more so there's this like fascinating way to be able to reward brand builders who are doing the thing that everyone tells them to do, whether it's like the Shopify folks, entrepreneurial kind of journey and dream as a whole, American dream, like whatever you want to call it. Everyone's like, hey, go start a brand. It's like so you can touch and feel it of like, I am gonna go start a t-shirt, print a t-shirt, put it online, sell it. That I think like at the end of the day, the part that nobody really wants to talk about on the other side is like the off ramp of it all. So we saw like these fascinating opportunities of Amazon aggregators popping up. We thought that if we could do it for growing and profitable direct to consumer businesses, we would naturally be able to kind of carve out our own niche and not reinvent the wheel. But there's a bunch of nuances, takes that we had on it. And like I think the one that we were pretty proud of was always the idea that we didn't think that we could do a better job than the founders that were building it from day one. And I think this like honestly to this day across a bunch of different businesses that we've started have had this like exact same appreciation, which is like just because we had the capital at the time, came in, swooped a business, gave an incredible liquidity opportunity to a founding team. Like that next day when it was in our ownership wasn't like we didn't think that we could just turn around profit margin or increase the business 5x. Like it was, okay, there's clearly a secret sauce, but we do think that there's operational efficiencies and other things that we could do as a partner to the founding team. So yeah, we ended up building out the portfolio there across all categories. Fascinating. Like I think my role specifically to touch on that part was as chief of staff to the three founders. My day in, day out lived on like the M&A side of things. So it was how can we reach out, become the best friends of as many impressive brand founders in the space, which actually tailed really well into the stuff that we've built more recently across Beanstalk and DTConnect. But like if you're talking about it as a sales cycle, the sales cycle was years. Like it was never, oh, we're going to reach out to someone, they're going to sell us our business overnight. It was, how do we pump a ridiculous amount of value to them without expecting anything in return? Intros to agencies, looking over their P&L at midnight, talking about strategy for 2026 and what else we're seeing, coaching around like the exit strategy. And then I think like the whole goal is if you're close enough with them, if they did think about selling the business at some point, you would be their first call. And I think that actually came to fruition. But the beautiful byproduct of it all was we just got to meet incredible builders and spend our days hearing about what they're up to, like what they were thinking about, what was top of mind. Yeah. So it was fascinating. Crazy, crazy time.
I know a big piece of the Agora story is obviously like the, economy turn in a very like in a kind of whipsaw way at the very least, right? It was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. E-commerce is everything. And then it's ZERP die, there's enough going on that I don't want to go into that part of the story, but I do want to tease out a little bit about what you think. And now, not only from then, but from now, like you talk to an insane amount of brands and your network is the best brands. It's like the marquee Shopify brands. And I'm sure beyond that at this point. What are the things that you think, kind of as the outsider looking in at these companies, that actually make those best brands what they are? Is it like, oh, they deeply understand their customer? Is it they figured out the first product and everything flows from that? Is it actually they're just incredible operators and they can eke out those margins? Like, is there any through line or alchemy that you see?
Oof, I feel like you're not going to be so blown away by this. And maybe
I'm
it's like a
fine with
little
that.
bit of it might not be, I don't know if the term is like recency bias, but the bias of the overwhelming number of data points we saw came down to like talented operators. And this is the kind of like man, woman founder that you would look at and be like, you could put them running a hot dog stand in the middle of Nebraska and they would be crazy talented and successful, right? Like there was that. But the other piece was like awareness or self-awareness around capitalization. I know it's like not sexy, not fun to talk about, probably some of like the biggest scar tissue over the past few years, but the teams that came in or the founders that came in, like I think everyone had that core idea for what their brand wanted to be, right? But then being really realistic and kind of thoughtful about how they achieve that. So it wasn't, I want to run a lifestyle business, but I'm going to go raise 10 million from a VC in New York. It was, I am going to develop like a next generation coffee machine that takes serious R&D. And that's why I'm going to go raise $10 million from a team in New York because there's like actual product moat. So it's like not fun to say, but it's like that talented operator. And we've always loved spending time with them, but that's across the board. Like I'm not saying that the teams that did raise money and maybe didn't need it weren't. It was just like a single decision at a point in time when there's zero fault to them. It was like handed out like candy on the side of the street. So not fun, but I think like honestly, that's probably one of the biggest things we took away from the past few years and all the data points we pulled in.
Interesting. All right, I want to dovetail down a separate thing that you kind of mentioned, which was kind of create value first, which if nothing else is like the thing that if somebody were to be like, hey, tell me about Max, like I'd probably say it in too many words, but that would be the point I would get to. What was the genesis of Commerce Summit that obviously became Beanstalk? And how have you guys thought about creating value first? Like, what does that mean to you? What are some of the things that you would do?
Yeah, 100%. To touch on like the Commerce Summit Beanstalk piece first, it was called Commerce Summit the first 2 years. That was the idea, and I think like from the beginning, me and my co-founders looked at it as like the Davos of digital commerce, not from like a grandiose, crazy programming Michael Phelps on stage talking about what it takes to be like a winner. It was more like, okay, we have this blessed and have worked pretty hard to build out this like incredible network of really smart people we know. Maybe programming, like we need to figure that out, but we're not party planners, event managers. We do know amazing people. So if you put them in a room together and you kind of take away a lot of that pressure of stages and being content heavy and staring up at a screen for something that you could have watched on YouTube at 2x speed. But you say like, okay, you are two people that are incredibly impressive running big businesses. How about you trade notes about what's going on in your life or what you've seen work on the business side or people management? I think you can find and kind of like strike a chord that's pretty interesting. So value to us was always like curation of incredible people. We love naturally spending time with incredible people. So how can we kind of put a wrapper around that, which was the Commerce Summit that became Beanstalk? And then in terms of like the value piece, yeah, I think like that was it was always okay if I'm going to be out in Tel Aviv and we're going to drop into New York for a weekend. Pretty incredible and like a blessing to be able to have all of the people that you want to see in one place. So it's like selfishly almost feels like a little bit of a cheat code, like shortcut of instead of running around to the different cities and doing coffees for 30 minutes, it's like, oh, I can see Aaron and I can see Michael at Post Pilot at the same time. And then like, oh, they can actually meet each other. So being that connecting point between it all selfishly, like I think just fills all of our cups, but it's also super value add to the industry, I think, as a whole.
And for you guys, it was a density of brand operators, right? And then there was a little bit of the tech side, and I know Harley was there, right? So Shopify was there, and I'm sure some agencies. But is it like, is there some alchemy of we get 70% of execs at high growth brands, or how do you think about that mix?
Yeah, so it's like the first part I think was even the most important. Like we said, we want to build this for brand executives and we want to find partners on the solution provider vendor side that can help us bring it to life. But we are building it for brand executives at the end of the day and being like really honest about that. But then the flip side was in that like perfect ratio. I think the ratio matters a lot when it comes to the mission. The biggest piece above that was the actual folks and kind of titles and missions of the people you bring. So if we had this kind of thesis that executives only and making sure that we can be crazy dialed in, that this is conversations where there isn't that mismatch of feeling like you're getting aggressively sold to when you're going to grab a cup of coffee or you're in the middle of something. I think that was actually like the piece that we held closest to our heart. So we've always tested and wanted to kind of like consistently up our game each year. But I think like as long as we stay true to those two things of like, we want to bring the best executives in the entire world together and we want to over index on bringing the best brands, then will usually be in like a pretty good place. That's kind of like always been our fallback.
I like it. I mean, we attended Beanstalk this year, obviously as like a tech company in the room. It was definitely a density of talent. It was really interesting. It was probably like the highest density of talent I'd seen, but it was also, I think the way that you guys structure the event is it is not salesy. It is literally like, can people learn from each other? My favorite individual conference of all time, and this is going to sound so stupid, but was like 2019 Shop Talk, because it was like the one where it was like,
not 2025 Beanstalk, because I
not
feel like we're
2025.
missing something.
That was second, and I'll explain if you want. But like Beanstalk was like on that kind of tier as far as I'm concerned. But the thing that like definitely resonated with me, and this is forever ago, and it might have been just my stage in my career, but it felt like the place where everybody was there to learn. Nobody was there to like. Everybody was in it together, and like Shopify was growing quickly, but obviously not anywhere near where it is today. And so it was just like a community feel of like, oh, cool, that's interesting. And like folks showed up being interested, genuinely had the same sense at Beanstalk. There wasn't like, oh, let me go show off, or it was like, cool, this is something we're struggling with. And I think when you can tease out those authentic discussions and you get the people in the room who are comfortable, they're not like peacocking, but they're like, yeah, this shit's hard. Like you actually create that much more value for the community. To be very specific, I have never felt more jealous than when I saw the Commerce Summit people the first couple of years and I wasn't part of it. And I was like, I'm just not that good at commerce yet. So
We didn't know each other yet. There was like there's a million paths in between there.
they were like,
It was a miss on our part. I was looking at it being like, how come Aaron isn't there?
I had some of my investors, I had some people who I'd invested in, I had friends companies. I was like, well, one day I'll earn it. So that's why you guys aren't quite first place, because I still am, jealous, and I've got some lane.
Fair enough. Now we just need to go 10 years down where you're coming for the next 9 and we'll be
There
in
it
a
is.
good place.
Cool. You guys
Yeah.
can pay me. I'll be a speaker. This is great. All right. I want to shift a little bit into DTConnect, and like you and I have kind of talked about this offline, but we are not like Orita doesn't partner with you guys at this point. It is something that like we've
Yeah.
considered. So I want you to walk through like the conceit of DTConnect, what it is, why people like it, what you've learned through the journey, and like let's take the conversation there.
Cool. No, but and I think like some of the data points will be fascinating. I want to hear why we don't have you guys on, because I think there's probably like a pretty an interesting piece that we could tease out. Really like quick backstory, I guess, on TT Connect was it was very kind of lucky and good positioning that after the first year of Beanstalk, after the conference, like candidly, agency side, sure, came from this position of like, I eat, slept, breathed everything to do with brand world. And I think if you spend your time enough in brand executive world, you start to feel this like weird sentiment of the solution provider side is there to take money out of my pocket. Very few of them can provide value and tell me to stop if I'm offending anyone too much. But it's like you kind of get into this feeling of it's all vaporware, like trust no one. You need the core stack, like Shopify is the only one to trust, etc. And to be honest, I might have felt a little bit of a victim to it, but it was this like incredible moment where when we were starting to find these partners on the sponsorship partner side for the conference for Beanstalk, started to have these like really genuine conversations. And I think like I will be very transparent. The thing that is like the most incredible thing for me when I'm speaking to like a founder specifically on like the solution provider side, which is like I think why we got along so well from the first time we chatted, which is like when you're building something, it is not the ultimate painkiller for everyone's problems in the world. Other like said differently, like it is not that this specific product is perfect for everyone. And we can kind of your grandmother, your cousin, your dog, everyone should be using it. It's like we are building something for a reason and for a specific team. You tell me XYZ about that team, and I can tell you whether or not I can crush it for them. And I want to have that conviction. So it's like I think a lot of founders I've always spoken to, and it's kind of like the biggest gift and curse with founders. You could be crazy high conviction. You can be very persuasive. You can be an amazing like person that I would want to grab a beer with. But it's that idea of like you're building with a very specific mission in mind that I actually like didn't even know existed so much. But then there were the U's of the world or the Tomers at Yotpo, the Michaels at Revroll, like the Michaels at Postpilot across the board of these teams that were just like incredible people building incredible companies. And candidly, you'd hear this like same sentiment being screamed from that side, which was like, hey, we're trying this playbook that went out there. We're trying the direct to consumer digital commerce, how to get a brand on our roster playbook, which is dinners, conferences, like going to the circuit, taking people to Yankees games, sending outbound, doing the whole thing. And it's like just not working so much anymore, or we don't feel like we're getting any alpha from it, if that makes sense. And then like you kind of stitch it all together from our perspective and you say, okay, it's probably just because everyone's doing the exact same thing. So it's like you kind of feel this fiduciary duty to do it, but it's not having the results that you would hope. So from us, it was kind of fascinating because I would go back to the brand executive side and I would speak with like all of my very good friends who were kind of saying in different languages for sure and in different ways, but they're like, we want to find these partners that can help us. We want to give back to the ecosystem. We want to be a part of something bigger, but with other friends like kind of shilling us stuff on their own referral programs or the sheer amount of outbound in my inbox or the invites I'm getting to stuff on a daily basis if I live on the coast. It's like, I actually have no idea who to trust anymore. So you could like play that whole trusting, but they were generally like looking for the other side. So we said like, okay, we're actually in a really interesting position where we can be the go-between or the connecting point between the most incredible like builders that we know on the solution provider side and the actual branding activity they're building those things for. So that was the thinking behind DTConnect. Didn't have it all like mapped out. We can go more into it, but we've sprinted to bring on the most incredible teams that we know on both sides to the platform. And I think like it's so cheesy and I actually get like a little bit allergic saying it, but like genuinely the goal is to like shape the future of commerce together. Because I think like if you can strip away the sales, strip away the kind of go-to-market pressures that exist of like zero sum, if I don't close this conversation, then it's a waste of time. And you can actually just put like really interesting operators that care about the future of the space together, be in a better place in the long term. And that's kind of like the bet that we're making on that side with DTConnect.
It's also when there's not a connection to be made, you figure that out much faster. right? I
For sure.
always talk about in a negotiation, like my actual goal is to get to know as quickly as possible. So I try to be extremely transparent. Like, this is what we cost. This is what we do. And if you can get to the right person who's like, actually, we don't have this problem, you say
Yeah.
much time. I actually do want you to go a level deeper because like I understand philosophically what you guys are doing and you guys being that trusted kind of core or the node, right? But what is the atomic unit of the experience for a brand? And what is the experience for a tech company? Like, you don't have to pitch me, but pitch me. Like, why? What is actually going to happen if I partner with DT Connect?
Yeah, 100%. So I think at the core is connections in the form of in-person and remote meetings. The step that's kind of like before it all, which I candidly probably don't do a good enough job of singing from the hilltops, is the sheer amount of time that we spend with teams on both sides. So it's like my whole goal is not going to be we have gotten to 10,000 brand executives on the platform and 1,000 solution provider
Mm.
founders. It is going to be we got to X of the best in the space. Like we are at the top 5% of operators in the space,
Mm.
and they are engaging in a really meaningful way on the platform together. Like that's going to always be our North Star. Tactically, what it actually looks like is if you are going, like I say this every single time to all of our brand exec friends and the folks that are kind of on the platform with us, but I think I am probably more maniacal about their time than they even are in the sense that like there are teams that you know that are just super open-minded, want to give back, that anyone that reaches out will take a pitch call, will jump on a feedback session, whatever it is. But I think at the end of the day, there is like no one that has their best interest at heart because you can call me on it like, and tell me if it's not true. There's like worlds where your fiduciary duty in terms of like building a solution is if I can get a meeting and I can like get my foot in the door with this team, I kind of have to, right? Like that's the goal. So whether or not that force function is in place to be mindful of team's time is kind of a question that I've always had. And then I think when it comes down to incentive alignment, it's like, are we incentivized around something that's like mutually beneficial and a bigger picture? Or is this about I need to put book calls in the calendar or I need to seem like I'm busy looking through an RFP to find a new XYZ provider? So it's connections, it's shaping the future and it's seeing around the corner on the brand executive side. And then it's also direct executive connections. So I think it's like really important to have that top level conversation just because at the end of the day, if you want something put on a product roadmap or you want something done, a lot of the time it's going to come from that operator to operator. I think there's a common language there as well. And then from a solution provider side of things, the whole piece is like, we are going to bring on the most impressive operators in the space. You can have direct access to them, but we need to make sure that you are being incredibly mindful of their time. So
Mm.
ideally, it's mutually beneficial. Ideally, you are kind of banging the table that this is a team that you're like, I can change my business if I have the ability to chat with them. So that's how we set it up. And I think like, listen, there's always, I wake up in cold sweats consistently from like a founder perspective, being like, how do we make sure we are going in a specific direction and not in another when lead gen agency or whatever it is comes up? I'm like, that is the opposite. Like, if anything, I want to think of this as like if you were building the best bar in the entire world and could place all of the smartest people you know with a common goal living around it and then have them all at a happy hour together each day. Like, I want to be that bar and I want
Right.
to be the people at the bouncer at the door being like, you come in, you come in.
So you guys you do a great job of vetting both sides, and then kind of after their discussions, are you actually checking in, being like, "Hey, was this actually useful?" Do you similarly do a good job of removing people? What does that look like?
Exactly. So
Okay.
it's the removing part is like maniacal and meticulous, I would say.
Okay.
And then there's actually like scoring after every single call. So we
Cool.
think that it's like really important that there's checks and balances and accountability, mindful of time,
Yeah.
open minded, everything, all that stuff.
Understood.
What
Um,
works for you guys though? Give me the rundown. Like I want
in what regard?
the full picture from an Orita perspective. Like you guys, secret sauce, crushing, or like when somebody on the team's like, oh, we can go to this conference or we have this specific, like what really, really works? Or what are you guys crazy excited about for 2026? I guess might be even a better question.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take this kind of thinking about like how we're trying to grow the business and like what our philosophy is. Um,
Yeah.
I think there are probably a couple things. One is on the product side, we are intentionally very narrow. We build AI customer segments. You're a brand, you have a lot of data. We will help you email the right people at the right time. We're not telling you what the content should be. We think your agency should do that. We're not your sender. We think Klaviyo should do that. We're not doing like the customization of the flow. There are cool companies, Revamp, Monocle. Like there are awesome companies that are doing that. Platforms are building their own Gen AI stuff. We're on the other side, which is like, does she want to hear from you or doesn't she? And so we stay in our lane. We could do all the Gen AI side, and we're just like, nope, that is not us. And so by being narrow, I think we get to create a very clear value prop, which is like, do you want to make more money from your email program? Yes or no? If you prefer to grow with acquisition spending, have at it, but like we will increase the LTV of your existing list. So that is helpful because it like tells people if they're looking for some Gen AI personalization, it's like, guys, that's on us. I will introduce you to
Yeah.
10 other companies. Like I know this ecosystem well, happy to help. But but if you are like your click rate's down or you've got bots or like you just want to do better with your email, if that's your priority, we are very clearly a great solution for that. We do partner with Postpilot. So we now do it with direct mail and otherwise, but it's like, that's it. We're not the platform. We're the data team. So that's one. I think number two is we are deeply partner first. So we are a very small team. Candidly, too small. I think the biggest mistake I've made is not aggressively hiring for growth. I started focusing on how do we cut our burn? How do we grow? And so like this morning, I literally posted 4 jobs, a couple like sales, head of sales, partnerships, and like a head of our Klaviyo partnership because we're so deep with Klaviyo that like I just want somebody who is in Boston who cares deeply about the Klaviyo team and Klaviyo customers and like we'll figure out to your point. It's not like, hey, sell, read it, but be like actually do discovery, figure out where were you
Yeah.
sold, make sure that people are educated about us and just like be ready. But partnerships is everything for us. So it is agencies and we go deep with as many retention agencies primarily as possible, right? And the idea is like our existence should make their content, their strategy sing. And like the ROI of the brand should be better no matter what tool they're using if Orita's around. If we help you send to the right people at the right time, your content performs better. You get more at bats on your flows because you didn't annoy somebody who unsubscribed. Klaviyo, your ROI in Klaviyo is higher because we helped you with segmentation. And so if you take that, it's like we're narrow and we are partner first. Is like we don't have any salespeople. I am the salesperson, which is good and bad because I'm like at no point am I desperate for closing a deal, but I'm also
Yeah.
doing these and I'm not like running through HubSpot. And so we're missing a lot of low hanging fruit because I want to grow our business, but like I'm doing 1,000 things. That is like kind of the 2 core principles. It is literally partnerships first. The experimentation that we're doing now is around events. And so like Beanstalk was a very big investment for us last year. Selfishly loved it. We got enough to like make it worth it. We will obviously be back, right? And the question for us is like, is it better for us to have execs or is it better for us to be at an event with the director of marketing or neither of them, but actually just go be with the agencies and spend more time with the junior CRM manager at an agency who like her career is tied to like making number go up and we can help her make number go up. And
Yeah.
so we look at events right now as like, we're truly in a discovery mode. We are going to Klaviyo's event this coming week. We are going to e-tail and we have a huge event that we're going to do at e-tail. We don't know if the ROI is good. We know it'll be a great event. We don't know if the ROI is going to accrue to Orita. We are doing experimentation with a bunch of dinners with our agency partners. Like we only do stuff with people we like.
Any hypothesis? Any hypothesis?
Yes. So with the agency dinners, it is the opportunity for deeper connection with our agency, full stop. And then ideally they're bringing 2 or 6 brands and we're there and we're not like hard selling anybody, but like just brand awareness is useful. There's a reason we do this podcast, which is like, I literally don't want to talk about Orita on these podcasts. I want to talk about you because I'm like, I'm curious about Max. And if Max has interesting stuff, we'll get distribution. And somewhere in the background, it'll say Orita and you're like, what's Orita? But like, you'll see it enough times, right? Like, that's why I do this is like, selfishly, I learn a lot, but also it's not the Aaron Schwartz podcast. It's the Orita podcast, right? Even though like, we don't talk about Orita 95% of the time. Yeah, so that's hypothesis on dinner is like, it's a couple $1,000 and if it works, we can then scale it 100 times. Let me stop. I gave you a lot there. I don't know if there's anything relevant that you want to double click on.
No, it's fascinating because it's like I almost think so with DTConnect, I guess the TLDR is that we are basically in the business of seeing what works really well and not across a lot of go-to-market and partner motions. You fall into this like fascinating bucket, which is like a total unicorn in the sense that like you're so likable that it's so fascinating to be able to calculate ROI when it comes to events. Like you put you in any room with someone and you will walk away with a relationship. I think the part that's fascinating to me and like we need to talk about it after as well, but it's like with the pinpointed accuracy of the product you guys are building, how quickly that can disseminate and kind of like loop in the right people in the event motion. Cause it's like, I think if you have decent targeting on like, okay, these guys from a high level proxy, we did all the legwork, kind of like spent the nights finding these people, and then they're in a dinner. That's like an ultimate motion of like, I can't even imagine where that goes.
Yeah.
The other one is hard because it's like a lot of investment, time, resources of people that will always take a call with you after, like, or a lot of the time will take a call with you after because you're an amazing person and because you can help them and kind of value first, like we were talking about. But it's wasted, like it's wasted from a sales perspective. You would call those like unqualified calls or whatever. So it's an interesting one. Like I'm kind of fascinated to see how you think about it and in general
Yeah.
how it plays out.
I mean, I think honestly, I tell our team a lot if like something doesn't turn out well and they're like, well, we should do that again. I'm like, the first question is, did we execute it well? If we
Yeah,
executed it well and the output was bad, but sometimes I'm just like, I think we did a quote unquote experiment, but we didn't do a good enough job. So I don't want to say it worked or it didn't work because we as a team kind of fumbled. Um, I think one of the things that is probably a gap right now, which is why I need to hire, is when I get into a conversation with an operator, I'm immediately thinking about my network of like, cool, it sounds like you actually have this problem. Can I connect you? And I want to do that. And it's like, it's not bad. Again, it brings me a lot of joy. And I think it like
yeah.
over time, it creates value, something, right? Cool. Like I'm able to pull you onto this podcast and suck you in because like we spend enough time together. We're like, all right, he's not shady on some level, right? So like there are some benefits, but the difference is a salesperson who is great at it. And I don't mean a salesy person. I mean somebody who is like, yeah, Max actually does have this need and we genuinely can be useful. So I'm going to be a dog on a bone and make sure that Max understands how we can be useful is such an important skill. And again, having that person who is not thinking about closing the deal, but I'm so reticent to hire salespeople because I really want a salesperson who's much more focused on, am I going to retain this customer? And are they going to have an exceptional experience with us? Like not under promise, over deliver, but like, is the journey going to be so great that they're going to be with us for 3 years? And if not, I actually don't want to close the deal, right? Because I'm just going to create pain in the ecosystem, if nothing else. I think that is like the very, very hard trade-off for an early stage company where you're like, we just need to grow. I don't know. I think that's where most companies end up struggling.
And you've seen inside like some of the incredible orgs in the space, right? Whether directly or through friends. Like we have a list of a bunch of mutual friends that I would say have like best in breed in certain functions, right? So I guess is that something that you've picked up from them? Is that a new hypothesis you're testing? Like what's the thinking there?
I mean, I've always been partnerships first. I kind of like, I think I ran a brand for 7 years, right? And I was such a terrible customer. I still think back, I think it was called like Instant Search Plus, something like that. And it was $39 a month in the Shopify ecosystem. And I'm sure the product was incredible, but it was $39 a month for me, right? And we were like a small growing brand. And I was like, I don't understand. Why did this? And literally, I'm sure the product was working perfectly, but I didn't like something about it and I was a pain in the butt. And so I'm extremely empathetic to brands. And I'm like, yep, if we don't deliver value, let us know, right? That is like, I don't know. Like it's still half of my career. I'm almost at them more than half on the tech side. So I think that's part of it. But then I stumbled into partnerships at Passport. It was the original vector of growth. Was Passport does international shipping for D2C brands. And the idea was beg, borrow, and steal introductions to 3PLs, full stop. And so it was, you go get a brand at the 3PL. If the 3PL, you get a truck going to the 3PL to do international shipping. If the 3PL realizes they make more money when Passport is in compared to DHL, this is again going back 7 or 8 years, because customers buy more because it's a better experience and brands are less reticent to sell internationally because it's a better experience, then the 3PL should, even if they hate me as a human, it should want to introduce Passport to all their brands. And so like I can still picture the whiteboard I had, which was like every 3PL I knew and as many brands and what the TMS was. And like it was a spider web. And so for me, it always became a like, we need to go, like, I think the best growth vector in this ecosystem is partnerships.
Sure.
I have philosophies on like how to do partnerships well or whatever, but like that has been it since 2017.
It's to give me the high level. Like what's the number the biggest one on the partnership side? Because to be honest, I actually we watch partnerships come up, setting up like a partnership with another team. And at its core, a lot of the time it just looks like referrals going back and forth. And like that comes down to incentive alignment. So you could most of the time shortcut a lot of those conversations with some of the harder ones up front. But there are teams that like live and die by it and others that swear it off. So yeah, what's like the biggest secret you think?
I like how you turn this on me completely. This is great. Max, thank you for having me today. This has been fun. Look, I think I'll give an anecdote first and then I'll share. There was somebody who worked with me at some point. I'm going to make this as vague as possible, who literally everybody I talked to about this person was like, oh my God, they're amazing. But then you look at the numbers and the person had zero pipeline created, zero, not like a little bit, like zero. And that was a big awakening to me, which is like, part of partnerships is like people liking you and being able to get in the door and connecting. But at the end of the day, like the job of partnerships, and again, I hate making it so crass, but is to drive pipeline or to drive sales or again, whatever the
Yeah.
partnership's goal is. Like there is a reason that somebody's getting paid money for this role. And you need to do it in the right way and bring in the right pipeline, not just numbers for the sake of numbers. So my overarching theme on partnerships, aside from like create more value, yada, 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 or be a net referrer, like really try hard to build the ecosystem, is 95% of partnerships are stupid. And actually, like the only partnerships that you should spend any time on are the ones where if my existence, let's just say you and I are partnering, if my existence makes Max's customers more money or makes Max's NPS retention, whatever, higher, right? So his customers stick around and his customers pay him more. Those are the only partnerships you should spend time on. I don't mean like, oh, we shouldn't like say hello to people or be kind or like build community. That is different. But in terms of
Yeah.
like structurally, even if you think I'm a terrible person and you're like, whatever it is, you would still, and I don't give you a revenue share or anything, you would still, to your point, be 100% incentivized to introduce my solution because it is literally making your product perform better, your customers happier. So why would you wait for a 10% rev share or for us to do an event? You should be like begging your customers to meet with me because it will make your business better. And so for Passport, it was 100% 3PLs. For Loop, there were a lot of partnerships, but at some point it became like Shopify invested in Loop. I'm not speaking for Loop today. This is like years ago, right? But it was like, hey, we should go meet with every Shopify merchant success manager. They should know the problems and know when to introduce Loop. That wasn't the only strategy, but like that was a big piece of it. Whereas like, yeah, of course, like Loop will help them turn a return into an exchange. They'll make more money, right? This will solve that problem. And for Orita, it is agencies in Klaviyo and Postpilot. We will eventually be on other platforms, but it's not tech partners. It's not investor. It's nothing else. Like I am connected with enough of these. You already mentioned some, and like I'll do events with them, but I'm not like, let's go do Crossbeam and make warm intros. It just like, it doesn't make sense.
It's so fascinating because I would argue above the majority of folks in the space, when they think about partnerships, they actually do it from the reverse, which is, are we targeting the same person? So if we were like, are we going to go to conference ABC and are we going to be hounding down the same person? Because, oh, if they can get it, then we can also have it type of
Yeah.
thing. Like we know that we'll get it in some way. To be honest, not to the approach seems to stem, and it's like it's exactly what you said before as well, leading from value, being narrow, and this partnerships philosophy. I think it's like a blessing or a mindset around product. Like it just seems so clear because you
Mhm.
can stand by your product where there's a lot of other smoke and mirrors that actually need to come up to be able to do the stuff where there isn't immediate value being created. And maybe smoke and mirrors is like a negative connotation or a negative way of saying it, but it's like true, right? Like you need to think go to market marketing wise if it can't just be value driven because
Yeah.
you have so much conviction that you could do that for your partners that that's what you can like strategize around, which is pretty
I think
fascinating.
so. I also think it's like time and score. If we had 10 million bucks more in the bank, not because we grew or we had investors or whatever, we had a bigger team, I would then be like, oh, cool. We are targeting the CMO. Like we work with a lot of like beauty brands. Great. We want to go meet all the CMOs. Let's go to their events. And if, by the way, Max's company serves those guys and they can make more, cool, let's do it. But when you're, you still need to prioritize anything. And for me, it's just
Yeah.
like our existence makes you more money, your customers happier. Ideally, both is like the easiest framework to use. And when you have limited time and resources, just like run away from anything else tied to that. I want to ask you a little bit. Are you done grilling me? Is there anything else I can answer?
I have a million more questions, but we can, I'll hand the mic back over
Thank you.
for a
Thank you.
little at least.
All right. All right. Give me a couple minutes. You spend a ton of time with brands. You spend a ton of time in the tech ecosystem. You've been in commerce for a very, very long time. What are some of the big shifts that you're seeing, whether like you have a strong perspective on the changes or like even just the questions that you have about how the e-commerce world is kind of evolving at this point?
I think it's relatively tactical, but it's kind of been this thing that we've been noticing coming up a bunch, which weirdly is very related to the last point we were talking about around product, which is I think consumer brands are feeling the pain of acquisition in ways that like it's not necessarily novel because it's been happening for a few years now. Customer acquisition is incredibly complicated. Everyone's trying to find their secret code. It's not 2017, whatever, Facebook of $1 in is $10 out, right? Like there's just different calculations going into place. So they are finding ways to basically lower the hesitation and risk of that consumer buy, like that kind of first conversion, because a lot of them actually have incredible products, especially the teams that like we know and love. They're building something legit and it's a brand that will resonate with people, right? So they're trying to lower that. The hardest part is that there's no, unless you're a subscription or whatever it is, like there isn't the easiest like trial period. So it's kind of fascinating when you then kind of take a step back and look at then the relationship between solution provider, vendor, and brands, which is like the name of the game is the people that can stand behind product, have the ability to run these tests, these trials, or whatever it is, and lowering that friction to say, okay, I'll put my money where my mouth is and see how this goes and roll the dice on it has been like the biggest unlock. Just because I think like I actually, to be totally honest, fascinated to hear your take because I don't know where it nets out. I think everyone like talks about mirroring the real estate market, how it's a buyer versus a seller market. The leverage is now in the consumer brand's hand versus it's back in the vendor's hand. I don't know if that's the case. And I also just don't know if it's like zero sum in that capacity. Like I think the best people I've ever met and like the teams that are building the most incredible businesses have never really thought that way. But when it comes to that, that almost like echoes this sentiment that, okay, in order to close deals, in order to like strike up partnerships, you need to be able to flex and stand by product. So I think in general, it's kind of like this business model around a business model of like you can have core product, but you need to be able to build around this pricing, this positioning, whatever it is. That's kind of fascinating to me. So that's one. I don't know if I explain specifically, but I just think it's like a fascinating mirror from like consumer brand all the way up to like how they do their own buying decisions. But I'm curious to like make sense, resonate with you at all? Like, are you seeing
It
something?
does. I mean, we're like in the data we see, and there's a lot of brands which are like, yeah, we're struggling. We're struggling on email, and we're like, guys, if you look back 9 months, you guys stopped acquiring new customers anywhere near the rate you were, and that was because CACs are going up and budgets change, and so now all of a sudden you have a list of existing customers or prospects who you start hammering because you need to
Yeah.
squeeze more juice out of that. That is like you can always make more money today by sending an extra email just to like simplify things, but you are putting revenue at risk in a week, in a month, in a quarter because you over people unsubscribe. You get worse deliverability. I mean, this is like the only thing we talk about is like hit people at the right time. So I definitely see that. I kind of tend to think about like the whole like trial and whatnot for a consumer brand. I think a lot about the like, and again, I don't have any data on this, so this might just be me owning a brand for a while and still like dreaming about that experience. To me, it still comes down to like the authenticity of the brand and like, do people love the product? And if they love the product and you give them ways to talk about it, that is how you sustain during a period where it is like too expensive to acquire new customers. And so I feel like to me, the brands that again, I don't have any empirical data, but that I would bet on being most successful are the ones where like it's not a perfunctory, we have some like influencers, but it's like an actual community of people who are super fans, who rave about it, who come back, who browse your collection, who are like truly engaged over time and will share with others is kind of the only place where I would go if I were running a brand today.
It's like I have to go back and I'll pull it properly, but like we actually we did have the data on the Agora side at some point. Like we were speaking to thousands of brands at a time.
Yeah.
This was like iOS 14.5, totally shaking up everything when it came to customer acquisition. And the part that was fascinating was like the ones that we naturally moved into advanced conversations with just because their P&L stood the test of time. There was like real businesses in place, had an underlying, I think most of them were they were like Facebook communities. Like there was a menstrual cup company that had this like way too large Facebook community for the size of the actual brand, or on the golf side of things. And like the list went on, but you just had this part gets a little bit more anecdotal, but it was like as buyers at the time, like that feeling in your stomach when you knew that there was that many people. And like, I think what you're saying is probably just under index or didn't do a good enough job of extrapolating that out of the ecosystem, like out of that community into the greater ecosystem, whether it's like UGC and amplifying that or whatever it is. But yeah, it's interesting you mentioned it because we saw that back in the day, and I think it's only compounded since then.
Max, this is really fun. Thank you. I do have one or two more questions for you and then we can wrap unless you have any like burning questions that I didn't answer.
I have one burning one for you.
Okay.
Talk about data points. You talk about everything. My biggest, it's like weirdly an inside joke slash like a genuine hypothesis of mine. Every single person on the brand side of things wishes that they were building a software company in the space. Everyone who is on the software side, or a good chunk of folks on the software side, wish that they were running a brand or thought that they could run a brand better. You have had the interesting path of being on both. Am I right? And you could probably just say yes and we can move on, but I'm fascinated.
Before DB and Zach, my co-founders, are both amazing machine learning engineers, and they were doing a consulting business. They figured out what has ultimately become Orita. And I was introduced as an advisor, and then they're like, "Hey, do you just want to be a co-founder?" It took a lot for me to do it because I was actually thinking, could I just go start a fun brand? Like
There we go.
low stress, low anything. I didn't have any like great brand idea, but the thing that I miss deeply about running a brand is the personal connection. Like, yes, sometimes you ruin Christmas and it sucks and it's painful and it's all that, but it was actually like, oh wow, I really love this product and the product was $80. And oh God, it's broken. Cool. Guys, let me refund you immediately. Like, let me do, it's been a while since I thought this way, but like I'm in my core a Zappos fanboy. And the idea was always, how do you go create like literally world-class customer service for a print-on-demand watch company? Like this seemed super relevant, but it was, how do I get you to have a great time? Give me product feedback. I'll make my product better. In spirit, you'll become a better customer. Running a brand is hard. Running a tech company is exhausting. I
Different
don't know.
flavors of hard, right? Different
Yeah,
flavors of hard.
I think you just got to go figure out what you actually want to do.
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't think anybody would want me to run their brand again. It's tough because again, in my network are like the Kyles from Chubby's and like all these people who I'm like, okay, if I had like your mentality or your like, I could have taken what was a really good performing brand and made it great. And I just like, I didn't know what I was doing. Right. And so, so it goes.
Yeah.
Not sure
Grass is
where
always greener.
I think the great one from that. But all right, my last two questions for you. The last thing is obviously like where can folks find you guys? And if you had a CTA, what would it be? But I did want to create space. Is there any other like advice or takeaways or anything you want to share, either brand side or tech side? And no stress if not. We've covered a ton of ground already. I'll leave it to
No,
you.
I think the biggest thing that I keep thinking about day in, day out is as like almost like a force function or like an occupational hazard. I've had this like crazy push over the past 7 years at least to, instead of like trading emails or DMs on Twitter or just relying on posts, have like honestly had the privilege to meet the majority of the incredible folks in this ecosystem, whether it be like over a one-on-one Zoom or at a conference or at a dinner we hosted. And I think like the number one thing I will say is it's actually like an incredible ecosystem to be a part of. I mean, I think we are all very lucky. So Twitter shit posting, dragging people through the mud on LinkedIn, whatever it is, and people posting about the Shopify numbers. At the end of the day, I actually think 99% of folks are incredible. And a lot of the time it just takes like moving away from the keyboard to actually build that personal connection. And honestly, like if we could position as like one of our key missions with DTConnect and Beanstalk, which I think beautifully play to each other, is just that, right? I think the more surface area for interaction and opportunities for people in this ecosystem to get to know each other on a deeper level than just, will you jump on a pitch call with me or will you come to a Yankees game if I buy a box? Like when we move the transactional part and like the human element forward, I think we will all be better off and genuinely just happier. So that would be the only thing I'd say.
I love it. Where can folks find you?
Slowly building out the LinkedIn presence, trying to share a little bit more of my thoughts there, partially inspired by the man that I'm with right now. And then, of course, Beanstalk and DT Connect on beanstalkevents.com and DTConnect.com.
I love it. Most of my LinkedIn posts are completely arbitrary. So sorry in advance, but
I love it. I literally just created a Claude project of like take Aaron's posts
there it
and
is.
make them my own.
Slightly
Or
better. I see what it's going to be. Max, thank you. Really and truly, this is a delight. I appreciate you making the
thank
time.
you, man. That is amazing. Appreciate you.
Hi, I'm Aaron Schwartz, co-founder and co-CEO of Orita.ai. We build AI customer segmentation for some of Klaviyo's biggest brands like Oriana, Spanx, Caraway, Third Love, True Classic, Rem Beauty, and on and on. Brands come to us to help find untapped revenue, improve their click rate, drive away mean bots, and a bunch more. You can learn more or get a free customer engagement audit at Orita.ai.